thrilled by this event, which signifies an amazing partnership. Historically, New York and Jerusalem were always partnered up. I remember in the days of the federations and twin cities. And so Jerusalem and New York were always partnered up. And I'm so happy to see the new reincarnation of this, which is trying to see how we can collaborate in our ecosystems. We're thrilled to be able to, in Jerusalem, to be able to have this type of partnership with New York. For us, JLM BioCity is a very important part of our civil society. I think the most special thing about Jerusalem is that our civil society is so strong. And our civil society doesn't just comprise of nonprofit organizations doing the classic work that nonprofit organizations do. Our civil society also comprises nonprofit organizations, the JLM BioCity, whose whole purpose is to advance the ecosystem, the bio-ecosystem in the city. And I'm very proud to say that in the last few years, we've nurtured ties between JLM BioCity, the city of Jerusalem, and JLM BioCity have opened up different horizons for Jerusalem in different cities around the world that we work to create new ties. And I'm absolutely thrilled that New York is a city that we're looking to create ties. Jerusalem, I think we both, in the startup genome list yesterday, New York came out as the second in the biggest ecosystems in the world. And Jerusalem and Tel Aviv came together in number 6. So we're very honored to be in the top 10, along with New York, which is number 2. And in Jerusalem in the last few months, we've seen the advantage that we've had for a number of years in biotech. And in, of course, pharma and diagnostics and all the different areas of the bioecosystem that we have here in the city. We saw that during the COVID-19, the advantages of having a university hospital like Hadassah. We're going to have Professor Rothstein talk about his work, and he's actually been a leader in the fight against COVID. Governments call him up for advice. Our government called him up for advice. And that is, I believe, the advantage of Jerusalem. That Jerusalem is our capital city, of course, but is actually the most important bio-ecosystem in the country, thanks to the strengths that we have, like Hadassah, Azrieli College with bioengineering, etc. And also the diversity that we have in Jerusalem. We are the most diversity in the country, like New York. We enjoy an incredible diversity, and that diversity ensures that we're actually one of the best labs that there is, because we can use that diversity for the advantage, trying, testing, and piloting different innovations. And so thank you very much for inviting me. I'm sure it's going to be a fascinating panel this evening. And thank you again, New York, for your friendship and for collaboration with us on these very, very important arenas. Thank you.
Thank you, Fleur. The feeling is mutual, so thank you very much. The next co-sponsor I would like to thank and introduce is our good friend and partner, Mr. Inon Elroy, Economic Minister to North America at the Israel Economic Mission here in New York. Inon?
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, New York. Good evening, Jerusalem. It's a pleasure to speak after Deputy Mayor Hassan-Nachoum and just before Gerry, my friend.
Can't hear you.
So thank you, Michael, and the New York Israel Chamber of Commerce, the state, the Empire State Development BioIdea, and JLM BioCity for this important session. And I want to thank personally Professor Zeev Rothstein, one of the leading Israeli health executives, and Noach Berkowitz for their participation, and looking forward for the contribution. I believe that this is a unique opportunity to expose each of the communities to the strength and to the potential synergies between them. You will expose to 4 interesting examples from an evolving cluster in Israel of 1,000 Israeli healthcare companies, which many of them are based in Jerusalem. And together with our partners, we will delight to introduce you to relevant ones if you have an interest. There are 4 important platforms that could serve us to prioritize cooperation between the US and Israeli companies. The first one is the Bird Foundation, which has been working already 44 years. Israeli and US companies could work together and gain up to $1 million for joint projects. If you're interested, they have 2 call for proposals during a year. A coming one, I think, is deadline is in September. There's 2 subsidiaries, if I may say, spin-offs for this Bird Foundation, one for first responders and one for energy. We're looking forward to give you the information if you're interested. The Israel Innovation Authority launched a tech transfer program where Israeli companies could get support in order to use and develop a foreign-based IP to a commercial application. Again, if there's anyone interested in that, I'm sure Gerry, Josh, and myself or any others could help you also to know that. You also may be interested to know that the state of New York and us, and maybe Gerry would say a word about it also, we've launched a program of smart cities, New York, where Israeli and New York State companies could work together. Digital health may be one of the sectors that may be of the focus. The fourth one that you may be interested is that the Israel Innovation Authority will publish an international call for proposal for Bioconvergence Innovation Lab during this year. Again, if there's anything that you may be interested, let us know. Last but not least, this is not about New York, but the Israel Innovation Authority has a pilot programs with several health organizations in the US. The deadline is July 2nd. Again, we can provide information. Thank you very much and looking forward to enjoy from this special event.
Thank you, Inon. The reality is that it was, if not for the economic development arm for the state of New York, in Empire State Development, Gerry Stoch, who connected us with JLM BioCity. And so, and they are here today as they've always been a good partner of ours and really helping us with our vision and our mandate. So the next co-sponsor I'd like to thank and introduce is Mr. Gerry Stoch, the Israel Director for Empire State Development of New York. Gerry? Gerry?
Now, there we go.
There you go.
Shalom. Did everybody hear the beginning? No.
Please start again.
Empire State Development is the agency charged with economic development for the state of New York. It's a very, very large enterprise that includes working globally. And our office in Israel is actually called the Israeli Office for Global New York. It's got many names, a lot of history. What we try to do, and we've done over many years now, is to encourage Israeli companies that are on expansion path to leave, not to leave Israel, God forbid, but to expand their businesses and to go into this world of bio and healthcare, which is quite obvious, but also in very many other fields as well. Inon, my dear friend, who has been a fantastic partner while he's been sitting in New York, the smart city one is the one that he mentioned, but you know, the Northwell HMO has got an agreement with the Israeli Israel, better known to the Israelis. We have also, since the governor of New York, Mr. Cuomo, was over in Israel today, exactly 1 year ago. I believe my other colleague, Ed Kowalewski, may also be on that show. Ed is in charge of investment into New York, and anyone that is looking to do their expansion, to do their clinical trials, and to set up operation should be speaking to me and to Ed coming forth. I also want to just thank the partners. So far, so good. Let's see how this fans out. And I would also say that we will look forward to the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerry. Thank you very much. We're almost at the end here. So our two more introductions. One is we appreciate our partnership with BioIdea, the life sciences healthcare organization here in New York. And so I'd like to introduce Dr. Boris Shor, founder of BioIdea, to introduce himself. Boris?
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. BioIdea is a local group that was founded a few years ago. And our goal, very simple, we connect together entrepreneurs, private companies, public companies, and we review them with the goal of featuring innovation and showcasing the novel discoveries. So the goal is to sort of invite companies at various stages of development and organize pitch competition events. And we review them at dedicated place, which is at Ingalls & Snyder, large investment bank and asset management firm. So yeah, so happy to participate and support entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Boris. Thank you very much. We're now going to turn to the company presentation. So thank you for all our co-sponsors. In addition to Boris, who's going to be a moderator for the next section, we are fortunate to have today Dr. Noah Berkowitz, Senior Vice President and Development Unit Head in Hematology at Bristol Myers Squibb. Noah, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Michael. And it's a pleasure to be here today. So I wanted to thank everyone for participating. Thank you for inviting me, but it's a special thanks to all of the innovators that have joined this conference, those that are expressing interest in learning more about them. Thanks to the sponsors and to everyone that makes this type of collaborative experience so successful. So it's just a comment overall about my presence here. So Bristol Myers Squibb is a global biopharmaceutical company that's focused in many different drug development areas. My contribution is in the hematology area, where I'm the development unit head. I have the opportunity to see innovation all the time. One of the lessons that I've learned over the past few years is that innovation in drug development can affect every step of the cycle of drug development. And that means that we have the initial innovation that has to do with drug discovery, and then its application, eventually how it can be applied for clinical benefit to patients, how we track it, and then after the drug is approved, how we're able to continue to observe its safety and efficacy in the real world population. So it's great to be speaking, to be introducing some companies that really have the potential to impact all aspects of drug discovery and development, with special focus today on how we can, some of these companies can impact this global pandemic. So the first company that I'm introducing is OMNYSENSE. So this morning we'll be hearing from Mr. Ian Solomon, who's the CTO of OMNYSENSE. This is a telehealth company, and it was founded in 2019 by serial entrepreneurs Ian Solomon and Yossi Adler. They've had a successful history of startups. The last medical device company that they co-founded, StudyMed, was sold to United Therapeutics for $216 million in 2018. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Mr. Ian Solomon.
Hello. Thank you to the organizers. I'm Ian Solomon from OMNYSENSE. I'll just share my screen here. We're a very broad-based telehealth company, but I'm just going to focus on what we're doing in the field of COVID-19. and talk about pandemics. Pandemics pose unique challenges to the healthcare system. They require large populations to be quarantined and monitored at home. The majority of those patients will have no symptoms or very mild symptoms, and this is a problem that may well recur annually during coming years. So we need to have strategies in place to deal with the surges that arise from this. There are two elements of this. One is to monitor the patients in place, in other words, while they're at home. And the other is to do forward triage, to sort those patients, to see who needs to arrive to the ED and to organize it. The solution that we're currently developing allows both. It allows patients to be screened and monitored for severe acute respiratory illness, whether COVID or some other pandemic, while protecting the community. Our approach is to use classical medical parameters that show descent into respiratory stress. That means assessing both whether the people have fever, whether it's because they have a high temperature or they have a high heart rate, and at the same time also monitoring their respiratory system, knowing whether it's their respiratory rates exceeded 20 or whether you can hear the crackles, which are one of the characteristics of this kind of respiratory infection. And they have a characteristic sound. Currently, there's no one making a full system that works in a simple manner in order to monitor this. What we're doing is taking the device that we are, in any case, developing, called the multimometer, and making like a simplified version of it specifically for pandemics. The way this works is the multimometer measures a wide variety of physiological parameters, whilst, as it were, taking your temperature when you put it in your mouth. I won't go through all the parameters. What's relevant here to pandemics is that where you hold it with your finger, there's a pulse oximeter, and from that we're extracting the heart rate and the blood oxygenation. And additionally, we have a microphone within the body, within the neck of the device, such that when this is in the mouth, and that is under the tongue collecting the temperature, we are listening to the respiratory sounds, and from that we can extract the respiratory rate and crackles, other sounds, and other parameters. What that enables us to do is to look firstly at all the parameters, secondly to see what the trajectory, and obviously if two or more are already flagged, then you know that the person that an alert needs to be issued for that patient. But additionally, we can look at the trend. Let's say they're checking themselves every once a day, twice a day, and we can see whether the current trend of these will lead to the point that within 12 or 24 hours, there will be an alert. The configuration is a thermometer, a multimometer used pretty much like you would use it today. We have an app which collects the data. It also displays it for those who are interested, but mostly it passes it on to a cloud process where we are going to be working together with an American telemedicine company. And in their cloud, we're going to store this data on an ongoing basis for all the patients who are at home, look at the compound indexes, perform the trend analysis, and issue automatic alerts. And in the end, when someone has been flagged, then they'll get a video call from a healthcare provider who will listen to their lung sounds as they were today, as they were last week, and then make a decision as to what to do with them. The number of benefits to this approach: first of all, the device is very intuitive for patients. For the physicians and the medical system as a whole, it's comprehensive because it looks at all the medical parameters that are important. And for emergency authorities, such as the national stockpile, it's a very low-cost device, so it's something that can be realistically stockpiled for potential who will need to be quarantined. And for the healthcare providers, the people running the system, it provides automatic screening and flagging of patients. Our current status is that we're monitoring most of the data. We're currently expanding the circuit board so as to add communications and the microphone. We're working with a US telemedicine company which will use their existing app and connect it to our information. And together we're then going to do the cloud-based heuristics. Obviously, we have a number of pathways, commercial pathways, in addition to the one using our device, app, cloud, and we are about to submit a proposal with the US telemedicine company for a complete pandemic management system. We'll be submitting that such things for the national stockpile. But of course, OMNYSENSE has its own commercial models, whether it's enabling remote patient monitoring for physicians, for clinics, and virtual visits, where these visits provide you with a very full and comprehensive information to the doctor. And also enhancing telemedicine by providing the data, which today people don't see. And from that, we look forward to getting a revenue split. This is our roadmap. By the end of the year, we'll have the first products. We're about to do a pilot study after that with the main HMO in Israel. And in parallel, we'll be hopefully working on introducing this product to the national stockpile for dealing with pandemics in the United States. This is our slogan, a multi-thermometer in every home. We believe it's useful not just for pandemics, but for many specific cases of telemedicine, because that's one of the major trends today. Thank you very much.
Boris?
Great. I think, no, do you have questions or?
Sure. Just, so first of all, it's very interesting how the company has thought out its commercialization strategy and looking at both pandemics, general use, as well as BARDA and specific use in clinics and other telemedicine connections.
So this is I used to go to my town, so since next year, okay? Let's go past, even though it's like funny, but it's okay?
I'm not sure.
You share that with you.
No, I'll put something else up.
Okay. If someone can, Boris, can you hear me still?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was curious if the company can explain, if Ian, if you can explain how you're using maybe a little more into how you're using the cloud and maybe how you're using AI, or if you're using AI to understand some of the signals you're picking up with your detection devices, and or really machine learning for that matter, to understand patterns and their predictive value, and if any of that is proprietary.
Well, those are things that we'll be doing for our multi-thermometer device as a whole in our cloud. Indeed, we will be building a database of data that's basically never really been collected, very broad-based data taken, so maybe using it once a day, once a week, once a month. We'll have their baselines just from them using it, to measure the temperature. We'll have their baselines. However, and we believe that will be an extremely important resource, but purely for the pandemic, it's a lot simpler, and we don't need AI, because for each of the vital signs that we want to measure to see their trend, we can see their trend. For example, if your temperature is going up, let's say in Fahrenheit, now it's 99, in 12 hours it's going to be 100. If we see also that the same thing is likely to happen to your respiratory rate, then we already know that this patient is going to be in difficulties in 12 hours. So it's really relatively simple heuristics for this specific application. But you are right, this opens the door to all sorts of AI using compound indexes of risk for many other applications.
Thank you.
Well, have time for one question. So do you guys know, I think the major advantage that you could identify some respiratory sort of distress symbols, but do you know which clinical sort of pathologies you can detect and, using the device and, do you know how to make sense, say for COVID-19, right? So what is specific to COVID-19 and what are you going to do in the future? Do you expect to run prospective trial with your device, or what are your plans?
Okay, so for the, we're looking for respiratory distress, which you would normally then say, this guy's in difficulty, he needs to go to hospital and have a lung x-ray. So that's basically the trigger condition we're looking for. It's true of COVID-19. It's also true of other viruses that cause respiratory distress. And so we're not specific to one or the other. And in fact, we're not looking to be, because now we have COVID-19, but who knows what the pandemic will be, the next one in 2-3 years. So, but what we do know is they mostly attack the respiratory system. So we expect that the next pandemic will also attack the respiratory system. We wish to be sufficiently broad to detect it and to manage it when it occurs. And that's our objective with regard to our application to BARDA. That doesn't mean that the rest of your question is not relevant. It is. We should be able to, by listening to the unusual sounds from the respiratory system, the wheezes, the crackles, we should be able to categorize the different diseases also. But that's not our immediate priority.
Thanks, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to our next speaker today. That's Dr. And so thank you very much, Ian, much appreciated. Our next speaker is Dr. Emmanuel Lerner. He is a scientist, a biotech entrepreneur as well. He co-invented, founded, and currently, currently is leading PEPTICOM, an AI peptide discovery company. Emmanuel led PEPTICOM from concept to revenue generation via collaboration with large multinational corporations. And he negotiated and executed multiple discovery deals and seed round financing. He has a PhD in biochemistry, and he has published his research in leading journals. So it's my pleasure this morning to introduce Dr. Emmanuel Lerner.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the organizers for letting me introduce you to PEPTICOM and the relevance of what we're doing to the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. So just as a short introduction, PEPTICOM is using its technology. It's an AI-based technology for the discovery of novel artificial peptides, short peptides, non-natural modified cyclic peptides, and linear peptides. We have our own in-house projects as well as collaborations, and we started 3 months ago a computational effort in order to find novel active peptides, basically trying to block the interaction of the virus, the spike protein, with the ACE2 receptor. As you know, this is the third outbreak of a coronavirus in the last 17 years. 2 of these outbreaks were viruses that were targeting the ACE2 receptors on human cells. Peptides could be relevant here because if you're trying to block a protein-protein interaction, try to inhibit the entry of the viruses into the cell, proteins, antibodies, and peptides could be relevant. And there are a few peptides that were actually approved as drugs for this purpose. I'll get to it in a second. What we are doing basically is using reinforcement learning in order to find new potential drugs in a huge chemical space, which is 10 to the power of 30. And we call this a swarm artificial intelligence, where we have robots, software robots communicating with one another and trying to understand the problem, basically taking a crystal structure and trying to find completely new active peptides. I would not get into more detail because we don't have any real time to get into it. So inhibition of fusion was validated as a strategy in HIV. There are 3 different approved drugs. One of them is a peptide. So as I said before, we started 3 months ago. We used our computational technology, and we were lucky enough to have one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world helping us sponsor the synthesis of something around 22 different peptides, trying to inhibit the ACE2 spike interaction, and thus trying to inhibit the entry of the virus into the cell. We believe this is a valid strategy, and we believe that a toolbox for fighting this virus and the next pandemic is something that is important for humanity. What we did, you can see here 2 strategies. One is trying to bind the ACE protein with a small, we are talking about small, non-naturally modified cyclic peptide, which are much more stable than linear natural peptides, completely artificially generated with our AI technology. So you can see an ACE2 binding peptide and a spike binding peptide. So that's one strategy, just trying to inhibit the interaction. We already synthesized these peptides, validated them for binding, and also have validated results for the inhibition of the binding of ACE2 to the spike protein. We have another strategy which we didn't start testing yet, which is basically an allosteric approach trying to inhibit the trimer of the spike protein, even becoming available to the ACE2. That's a more difficult approach to test, and we are looking for partners in order to move this project forward. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel.
Great. Thanks, Emmanuel. Yeah, so maybe, no, it's yeah, very interesting topic. AI, as you know, is booming. Application of AI in biology. I guess a couple of scientific questions. So, there always got to be advantage of using AI versus experimental approach, right? So, maybe you could emphasize, your advantages, right, versus purely experimental screening, of the peptide libraries, right?
Yes, so I didn't want to get into it, but I'll be more than happy to answer. So we are talking about the chemical space when we're talking about solving or trying to find the best binder in such a project of, so the chemical space is something around 10 to the power of 30 different solutions. It's like winning the Powerball 4 times in a row. So try to imagine that. There's no way you're going to do that with libraries. The best technologies of peptide libraries are capable of trying to test 10 to the power of 12. So they don't screen or even a billionth of the real problem. This is why we think that artificial intelligence is extremely important. And basically what we're doing, I didn't get into it because I didn't think it would be relevant in the time frame, is our software robots are talking to each other, sensing the protein. Of course, they know chemistry, and because they interact and share their solutions, there is basically a huge elimination of dead ends that would never become a binding peptide. And first of all, we know that this is an extremely efficient approach. Try to think that that's not our main project. We have other projects running. So we did this on the side without any funding. We started running a computer 3 months ago, and we already have validated peptides that are completely, that are not derived out of any natural protein, okay? So I think that's just another way of showing the power of AI. And we believe this is the future of peptide drug discovery. And in small molecules, there are a few companies trying to do something more or less the same.
I have probably thousands of questions, but I think no. Do you wanna go ahead? Do you have any?
No, why don't you, if you have another one, Boris, go.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So maybe you can comment. So have you validated your, algorithms or learning in a real life situation, and were you able to identify, say, high affinity binders, in say low nanomolar range, and what indications you think you would go forward? What are your favorite indications? Oncology or viral diseases?
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the question. There's a limit to what I can really share, because that's a public talk. And so we have our own vertical project that we are running in-house. It's in the field of immunology or immunological diseases. That's one of our main focuses. I can tell you that in projects that we collaborate with large biotechs and pharmaceuticals, we are capable of reaching low nanomolar bind active peptides. We believe that the peptides that we currently have are active in the Corona project, are active in the low double-digit nanomolar range. So that's an excellent starting point. Of course, they need some optimization, and when you're using these kinds of technologies, in many times you start with a hit and then you need to optimize it as you do in any other project. The benefit here is that when we design the peptides using our technology, we have a very good understanding or model of where these peptides bind. So the chances and the ability to optimize the peptides are much more efficient than when you're just starting from an unknown binding area, as you would do with library research.
Got it. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Yeah, no, you want to take over?
Sure. Thank you, Emmanuel. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions in the breakout room. So next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Cliff Ansel, who's the CEO of RESPINOVA, an Israeli company developing a breakthrough device for treating COPD, and now also looking to help in the fight against COVID-19. Prior to moving to Israel, one second. Prior to moving to Israel to take over the helm of RESPINOVA and leading the company to its commercial phase, Mr. Ansel was the founder of a successful group of medical device companies in Canada. And now some of these companies are contributing to Canada's response to COVID. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ansel.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cliff Ansel, and I'm the CEO of RESPINOVA. First, I would like to thank the organizers for setting up this conference. And second of all, I would like to acknowledge all of the healthcare workers on the front lines, the companies like these stepping up to help, and the funders behind them, such as yourselves. So COVID really came out of nowhere, and in just a few months has infected over 10 million people and killed over 500,000 and completely disrupted the entire world. COPD, on the other hand, is a group of chronic lung diseases that have been around for over a century. What's notable about COPD, perhaps, is that it affects over 30 times the number of people that COVID has. And if you look at the last decade, is more than 50 times as deadly. And perhaps worse is that long after COVID is gone, COPD will continue to kill 3 million people every single year. We at RESPINOVA had been working on a breakthrough treatment for COPD, and we quickly recognized some of the overlaps between COVID and COPD. So we've adjusted our trajectory for the short term to help in this battle. COPD is a progressive lung disease where the airways narrow, fill with mucus, and collapse. COVID patients also suffer from inflamed airways, although in this case from infection. And studies show that there is considerable thick, sticky mucus clogging the airways of these patients. COPD is typically treated with drugs whose goal is to reduce the constriction of airways by relaxing the muscle around the airways. The problem is that most COPD is caused by smaller, deeper airways, where there's no muscle for the drugs to target. And similarly in COVID, if there are closed airways filled with mucus deep in the lung, even ventilators won't help. So how can we help? Our patented system called Pulse-haler uses a series of air pressure pulses at different frequencies that can do two things. First, these pulses vibrate their way down to closed airways, repeatedly pushing at the opening and gently pop them back open. Second, the vibrations lower the viscosity of mucus clogging the airways, kind of like shaking up a bottle of ketchup. So how can Pulse-haler help in the fight against COVID? 3 ways. First of all, the most vulnerable patient population for COVID is COPD patients, with over 2.5 times the risk of becoming a serious case. We see this in nursing homes where COVID is ripping through their populations at an alarming rate, which is not surprising because 20% of nursing home patients actually have COPD. So the first way we can help is to treat COPD patients, particularly those in nursing homes, to better prepare their lungs for if and when COVID-19 hits. We have already proven clinically that Pulse-haler improves the lungs of COPD patients. The second way we can help is in the hospital by treating COVID patients directly with Pulse-haler, either during the moderate or severe phase to flatten the curve, or potentially even during ventilation, where Pulse-haler can be used as an easier means to implement something called high-frequency ventilation that is gentler on lungs and improves oxygenation. The third way is to treat COVID patients as they get rid of the infection and begin rehabilitation. Data shows that severe COVID patients are suffering from residual lung issues, and Pulse-haler can help. Pulse-haler is ready for manufacturing, and we are currently in discussions with several hospitals to launch COVID trials. We are planning commercial launch of Pulse-haler later this year for COPD, with submissions to FDA and CE right around the corner. Our business model is straightforward. We sell Pulse-haler systems and consumables either directly or through distributors, depending on the market. We already have our first partnership with a public company covering Hong Kong and China, Vincent Medical. We have a top-notch team to execute on this with over 125 years of experience in medical devices and 15 issued patents already. And sorry. We have raised $5 million through our Series A. We've also received $2.5 million from the award of Horizon 2020 grant. But we need your support now to keep our momentum and address COVID quickly. We are currently raising a bridge round of $1.5 million to support our COVID efforts, which will be used to conduct our COVID clinical trials and ramp up production. So to summarize, at RESPINOVA, our mission is to improve the lives of patients with respiratory disease, whether it's COVID today or COPD tomorrow. We look forward to speaking with you one-on-one, and thank you again for joining us tonight. If anyone would like a copy of these slides, please reach out to me by email. I put my email information in the chat. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Cliff. Yeah, so I think it's very relevant, of course, to respiratory problems. And I'm particularly interested to understand what are the advantages of your device versus a variety of nebulizers, portable nebulizers, and nebulizers that are used in the hospital. Is it drug deposition rate, or have you specifically demonstrated it with COPD, and what were like the main advantages?
Sure. So first of all, this particular device is a drug-free device. Meaning this device is using air pressure pulses specifically to go in and open the airways. So there's no drug being delivered here. Now there are future products which will be coming down the pipe which will combine these pulsations to open the airways with delivery of drugs, but that's kind of for another day. So right now, if you think about drugs as a kind of a broad solution, Sure, if anybody has a great anti-COVID drug, we would love to deliver it through our device. But our device can help COVID without drugs, just by reopening the airways using the air pressure pulses.
So that's been validated and in trials, or?
So it's been validated in COPD in a trial I showed some results from in one of the slides that was done here at Hadassah Medical Center. We are now trying to set up some studies with COVID in some hospitals, some here, potentially some in Italy, and maybe also looking at the US.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's, as you know, there have been reports that, you know, using nebulators may worsen actually and push the viral particles, you know, down the lungs. So it would be interesting to see how your device, sort of, that's one advantage, right? It doesn't need drugs to be delivered. And I don't know if it's true. I think it's still discussed. But yeah, no, do you have any other questions?
No, I think that's, I don't have any at this time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cliff.
Okay. So, excuse me, 1 second. I seem to have lost my screen here, so apologies. Okay, so our next speaker is Dr. Michael Harnoy, who's the CEO of IMMUNOVATIVE Therapies. IMMUNOVATIVE is a private clinical stage international biopharmaceutical company that has been spun out of Hadassah Medical Center, and it specializes in development and clinical translation and manufacturing of next generation immunotherapies, where the active ingredient is living immune cells. So Dr. Harnoy, if I turn it over to you, we're very interested in learning more about the cell therapies. Thank you.
Thank you. I just share my screen. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Harnoy, the founder of IMMUNOVATIVE Therapies. We spun out from Hadassah Medical Center in 2003, and we currently have our GMP manufacturing facilities in Malcha Technology Park in Jerusalem. We have a US subsidiary in Phoenix, Arizona, where I am now, and we have two drugs in clinical development being tested in New York. So it's appropriate link here between Jerusalem and New York. The problem that we are addressing is the problem that the most harmful effects of respiratory viruses in general, COVID-19 in particular, is the disproportionate rate at which it affects the elderly over 65. The death rate, intensive care rate, hospitalization rates are all significantly higher in the elderly than in the younger. Our proposed solution to this problem is a pan-viral vaccine that's specifically designed to protect the elderly from the severe effects of respiratory virus infection. Being a pan-viral vaccine, it means that it could potentially not only be effective against the current COVID-19 virus, but also any potential mutations of that virus that might occur in the future, and also any new pandemic virus that we currently don't know about and don't know its structure that might appear anytime in the future. What's unique about this particular pan-viral vaccine is it's specifically designed to work in elderly people with senescent immune systems, whereas, as you know, influenza vaccines, for example, the elderly respond much poorly to these vaccines compared to the young.
Michael, if you're speaking, we've lost you.
The concept here is to re-engineer the immune response that occurs in the elderly so that the response is more like the response that occurs in the young. In the young, we have a rapid initial innate immune response that controls the viral, the amount of virus, the viremia, by generating an antiviral state primarily through genes which express interferons. And then having controlled the viremia, we get a follow-up adaptive immune response, which provides protection from reinfection of the virus. In a senescent immune system of the elderly, the viremia grows rapidly because of a delayed innate immune response. In the presence of the high viremia, there's an over exuberant innate response, which is the cause of the severe symptoms such as cytokine storm, ARDS, and multiple organ failure, and eventually death in the elderly. Also, the adaptive immune response is in the elderly is very weak. Our approach remodels the immune system by making the patients immune to foreign cells, our foreign cells, which we call allostim. And so that when the virus is introduced into the respiratory tract, there's non-specific activation of a pool of allo-specific cells that produce large amounts of gamma interferon, creating that antiviral state and promoting a rapid innate immune response. The FDA has recently cleared our IND as a viral prophylaxis and a phase 1/2 clinical trial that'll be conducted in clinics in Bronx, New York. The trial that was approved will recruit 40 volunteers over age 65 years old, and those volunteers will have blood collected before and after their vaccination. There's 5 vaccinations over 14 days. The efficacy is going to be determined by challenging the blood outside of the body with live viruses, including the virus that causes COVID-19, also with various influenza viruses, to demonstrate that in the presence of the virus, that the new immune system can control the propagation of the virus or inhibit the propagation of the virus.
Great. Thank you, Michael. No?
Yes.
Sure.
You'd like to go
Thank
first?
you. Sure. So, Michael, is this study that you're describing, is that a dose escalation study? Do you have to look for the appropriate safe dose? How is it designed?
Because this is a repurposed drug that's currently being used as a cancer vaccine in chemotherapy refractory metastatic disease, we have extensive preclinical and clinical development, including a phase 2A dose ranging dose frequency study on the dosing. So we were able to use that data in support of the current protocol when we filed for the IND. So we think that now that this is the most optimal dosing and frequency to get the immune effects that we're looking for in the elderly.
I see. And do patients have to be hospitalized at all, or it's all outpatient?
So that's a good question. This is an outpatient type of procedure. It's relatively benign from a toxicity point of view. It's just a simple injection of 0.5 milliliter of the living cells just under the skin intradermally. Patients are observed for 30 minutes after the injection and they go home. We've treated over 100 seriously ill, heavily treated, pre-treated cancer patients with intradermal injections. So we know that the injections are safe.
Thank you. And my last question is, what do you think are the most important signals for you, even though this is kind of a primarily safety focused, your first study here, but you will be looking for some surrogate markers for activity. What, if you had to list the top 3, what are they?
So the first surrogate marker that we test as part of the protocol is to detect after injection of the drug if there's an increase in allospecific Th1 and CTL immune cells that we can detect in the peripheral blood. The second major step in the immune cascade is we challenge the PBMC collected from the patients with surrogates of virus. So we have beads with the S1 protein conjugated. We have other beads that we've conjugated single-stranded RNA. The concept is those surrogate viral particles will activate the monocytes in the culture, which will non-specifically activate our allospecific immune cells. So we'll detect that. Lastly, and the key to efficacy is after the blood is challenged with the viral surrogates, the supernatants from those assays will be co-cultured in live viral cytolytic assays where live virus is pulsed on human endothelial cells, and we will determine if the supernatants suppress the proliferation of the virus.
With kind of representing the products of the innate immune response, I guess.
Yes, the products of the initial innate immune response, but of course the mechanism we hope will continue to create in situ vaccination, leading to long-term protective immunity against that specific virus to prevent reoccurrence. This is the same mechanism that we use in cancer, where we have a off-the-shelf allogeneic cell injected into patients with many different types of cancer, but we end up with tumor-specific, patient-specific anti-cancer immunity, even though the drug has no antigens for the patient's specific tumor.
Thank you. Okay.
Wow. Thank you, Noah and Boris, and thank you, Michael, and all entrepreneurs for impressive presentations. I'm honored to invite Director General at Hadassah Medical Center, Professor Zeev Rothstein, who has found the time to be with us in the days of Corona crisis management in Hadassah Hospital, among his other influential activities. Professor Rothstein, please. You're muted, Professor Rothstein.
Hi, everybody. I'm heard. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm delighted that among the presentation, you can see some presentation that originated back in Hadassah. And really just to tell you that they are deeply involved with research regarding, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. And let me tell you what we are doing. During the last 2 months, we accumulated plasma from patients who already are free of disease, and they showed a high level of gamma globulin in their blood, assuming that these gamma globulin are the kind of the gamma globulin that are fighting against the virus. We were able during the last month to screen the plasma and to take from the plasma only the gamma globulins out of the plasma and preparing a passive immunization, which can be easily infused into extreme cases of patients, or maybe even at the beginning of the disease for high-risk patients that have background disease. Using gamma globulin is not a new idea for viral infection, but for COVID, unfortunately, this was not done yet in enough quantity to justify if it's active or not. One thing is for sure, it's quite safe. And our experience until now was one patient that had severe background of obesity of 170 kilograms with chronic lung disease and congestive heart failure. And you can add whatever you want. And unfortunately, she got COVID-19. She was respirator, and we put her also on ECMO. Under this condition, we try the passive immunization on her, which the experience at the beginning was quite nice. We could have shown a reduction in the viral load with some kind of hemodynamic improvement, but unfortunately she collapsed at the end and we couldn't save her anymore. This was the first experiments with passive immunization in Israel, and of course we are ready right now to continue clinical study to try to find the advantage of using this immunization. What we know from our accumulated number of cases that we have to compete with two things. First of all is the viral load. Whatever we see high viral load, we know that the case is going to be extreme. And another sign is high level of interleukin-6 to demonstrate further cytokine storm down the road. Both reasons, high viral load and cytokine storm, are very bad omen for these patients. And this patient needed to be early treated with whatever you have. Of course, we are in the clinical study of remdesivir and some other medication as well in Israel, and especially in Hadassah, but we cannot point out right now and pointing a winning horse among the medication that we are using. The only thing that can anticipate, of course, if we'll be able to, first of all, to monitor high level of interleukin-6 and of course to reduce the cytokine storm of the patient, that will be an advantage. At the beginning, first of all, we have to prove the relationship between the interleukin-6 and the cytokine level in the patient. And secondly, of course, is the high viral load. From our cases, and unfortunately, we are witnessing now the second wave. That's how it's called in Israel. I believe it's the continuation of the first, I would say, wave, with hundreds, around 500 cases, new cases a day in the country. Luckily, those patients are young patients relatively, and not a lot of them are actually admitted to the hospital. But the way that we actually isolate our patients without differentiating who are the positive COVID and who are the negative COVID, cause us to send home thousands of young patients that will be in touch with their parents, and what is worse than that, with the grandparents. And now what we witness and what we see is the second generation. It's the our grandfathers and grandmothers that we infected from this wave that are coming to us. Momentarily in Hadassah, we are treating something like 60 patients. Almost 6 of them are on respirator. It's not the peak. In the peak time, we used to have on the respirators something like 25 patients. So it's a low, I would say, number of patients, but it allows you, okay, to enter them to different clinical studies authorized by our IRB, and we will be able to deduct some kind of conclusion out of them. And one, which is the most important, how to anticipate, to know in advance that the patient is going to deteriorate. And I believe it has to do with interleukin-6 and the cytokine storm. And the second, of course, that's already proven, it's the high viral load, okay, in the patients that needed, okay, to be treated. Personally, I believe that the passive immunization, it's been a high level of gamma globulin harvested from plasma of recovered patient, will be one of the answers in the very near future, until we will have some active immunization, as you know, we saw certain attempts around the world with it. So, you know, I'll be able to report to you in a couple of weeks when we'll have more experience with the hyperimmune gamma, and of course with measurements of interleukin-6. Hamutal? You are mute.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rothstein, for joining us today as we launch our first bilateral New York Jerusalem event. You presented very interesting and impressive examples that demonstrate your innovative approach. And as Hadassah Medical Center's Director General, we are aware of the tremendous creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship you have contributed to Hadassah Hospital with the dedicated support of Hadassah ladies. Thank you, Professor Rothstein.
Thank you.
We also thank you all. And as we conclude, I would like to thank all of entrepreneurs for their impressive presentations as the world seeks for urgent solutions to this awful pandemic. Well, friends, I recently read about $9 billion market cap Israeli unicorns who have chosen New York for their international headquarters. This is not surprising. After all, it's New York. We all know that New York has welcomed hundreds of Israeli companies to join its innovative ecosystem. This potential collaboration led us to this event today in the context of COVID-19 innovation. On behalf of Jerusalem BioCity, I would like to thank all of our partners for participating in today's event. First, I would like to thank the New York Israel Chamber of Commerce, led by its president, Michael David. Michael is actually senior executive at Alex Brown. Thank you, Michael, for your leadership and partnership.
Thank you, Hamutal. The pleasure is ours, and we appreciate your reaching out. And really thank you to our presenters and our and all of our guests. We would not have an organization without our members and our supporters. And so, you know, really, we appreciate your coming to us. We appreciate the tremendous companies and creativity that you brought to us today. And thank as well to Boris, of course, and Noah Berkowitz, who did such a great job moderating our panels today. We thank you very much. So thank you for that. So Hamutal, do you want to talk about the next stage, sort of the final stage of the breakout rooms and how this is going to work, please?
Yes, but first I would like to thank Israeli College of Engineering in Jerusalem, and especially Professor Debbie Shalev the head of pharmaceutical engineering, for their continued support in so many ways. And I want to thank each and every one of you, the audience, who joined us today. Jerusalem BioCity is dedicated to promising cooperation with partners around the world and in our twin city, New York, for advancing corporate synergies. COVID-19, as we already know, presents challenges, but also opportunities. So we invite you all to track our notifications and enhance synergies together with us in our next bilateral event that will be announced possibly during the fall. Thank you all. You're all invited to take the opportunity now and participate breakout rooms to start connecting and create synergies. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and I will be moving people randomly into these rooms, and you can come back into the main room at any time. And if you'd rather go into another room, you can just open your mic and tell me.
Wow, that's impressive. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, I'm just waiting for everyone to get in here before we start.
Cool. I've never seen a breakout room in Zoom. This is cool.
This is our attempt to basically get people to network with one another. And, you know,
I didn't know Zoom had breakout rooms. It's new to me.
I'm trying to change my name. She doesn't, I can. Okay. Margarita Corta. She's not joining us, unfortunately.
Joe?
Yes?
Joe?
Hi, Avram.
Hi. You'll see, if you click on your picture, you'll see it says mute and 3 dots.
Yeah.
Just click. If you click on the 3 dots, you'll see rename as one of the choices.
Thank you. Okay, that makes me very then. Okay. Okay.
There, you did it. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm Joe Van Zworn. I'll be moderating this breakout room. I'm president from Jerusalem BioCity, and which you've heard about a little bit. And we believe a lot in the connection between New York and Israel. We like, and that's why we initiated this event. We'd like to hear from all the people here that they could introduce themselves briefly, tell from what company they're with, for what organization they're with, what they do there, and why what they think the future is between New York and Israel cooperation and relations in the biotech. Cliff, maybe you start.
Sure. Cliff Ansell is one of the presenters tonight. Running RESPINOVA. We're a Modi'in-based Israeli medtech company working on all manner of respiratory diseases, starting with chronic lung disease, little detour into COVID, as I mentioned, and a lot of connections with New York. Just personally, my whole family's from New York. So back in the day when we used to travel, we were there all the time. We're not quite at the stage yet where we're ready to set up shop in the States. We haven't quite got there yet. So I'm not sure what the near future will hold for us as far as Israel, New York, but of course, one of my favorite places on the planet. We love New York, as the saying goes.
Thanks. Avram, maybe you'll present yourself.
I'm with Jerusalem BioCity, but I will be leaving Jerusalem and returning home, hopefully in a week and a half, with the help of United Airlines, at which point I'm going to begin investigating the possibility of setting up an American Friends of Jerusalem BioCity. And I want to say to those people here who are from North America, but not from the United States, it will welcome anyone from North America.
Thank you. Maybe here, Israel Raz from Chicago.
Yeah, good morning, evening. Joe, first, I'm still at awe from what when I was participating in last hour or so. It's an amazing initiative and one of a kind, you know, bringing, I don't know, 80, 90 people together and just giving a taste, the tip of the iceberg of what's happening and what's to come. It's just still that impression. So, hello, everybody. I apologize for not being from New York. I love New York. My name is Israel Wise. I live in Chicago for many years, grew up in Israel, and I work at Textile Partners. It's a boutique life science business development firm headquartered in Boston. Spent over 25 years in global marketing responsibilities in innovative medical devices, GE healthcare, given imaging, and so on. What we do these days is work with potentially game-changing medical device and healthcare IT companies globally. Many of our clients are from Israel to develop early investments and strategic partnerships with the global market leaders in their fields. And I spend part of my time volunteering, working with mentoring young companies and helping initiatives like Jerusalem BioCity and Metro in Chicago and others. And I'm delighted to meet you all. Good luck to you all, no matter what you do.
Thank you. Can we hear from Julian Deich?
He doesn't have a microphone.
Oh, Julian doesn't have a microphone?
He's muted.
Yeah, he just wrote, my name is Julian. I'm on my desk PC without camera or mic.
Okay.
Based in Boston area, but sitting in Tel Aviv.
Okay. Can we go on to Lior Moyal?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lior Moyal, and I'm an entrepreneur in residence with Kamet Ventures. Kamet Ventures is an incubator for startups in the health space, owned by AXA, and they have offices in Paris, London, and
yeah, we got cut off.
No,
Okay. Can we have now Natan Lerman?
Hi, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Lior. Yeah, Nathan Lerman with a mid-sized private equity shop based in New York. I've spent a nice amount of time in Jerusalem and Israel. Have a lot of family there, so good reason to come back. And we have done a couple of deals in Israel, one opportunistically, one strategically. We focused on manufacturing, healthcare, real estate, and tech, especially with creative financing structures.
That sounds a little intriguing. Could you explain more how it works?
Sure. So I mean, we'll leverage a variety of structures. It often depends. Obviously, sometimes we'll invest as a smaller player as part of a larger deal, in which case then we'll go with the typical financing model if we think we can diligence and understand appropriately. But there are a fair amount of deals where we have adopted some creative models. One is leveraging tax credit financing. In a number of American states, you can, and some of the federal government, you can use certain types of tax credits that the government offers that the smaller company or startup or the recipient of the capital doesn't necessarily have the use for those tax credits. New markets, venture capital credits, historic credits, and so forth. So in those cases, we'll come in often either on the project side or as the investor in leveraging those tax credits as part of investment. We've also used sort of second tier, we've taken the tail on certain working capital and working capital positions as we'll creatively diligence that, and revenue-based financing we've done on a couple of deals. So what that'll do is help provide the company additional capital to size up as it needs it while presenting the framework already in place. So if the company is successful in growing its revenue or growing its structure, then that working capital, then that often serves as a backdoor form of debt while creating an equity model, whether it's warrants or options or kickers or so forth.
I see. So we have here Cliff and Shor from RESPINOVA. Are there anyone in the room would you like to ask them questions about the meeting?
Yeah, no, so Cliff, actually, I thought your presentation was very interesting. I was taking some notes. I know you mentioned that you'd have the email, and I apologize, the video screen's a little bit off. I have it on the iPad, leveraged a little bit up, so you're not staring at my ceiling. But I would love your email to look at the presentation, may be able to ask a little more follow-up on that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll put it again in the chat box, so everybody has it. I like to think that the presentation was so clear, nobody had any questions. Often that's not.
You're on with a bunch of Jews, Cliff.
That's right. So often it's just that they're bored. No, but it's great. So my email is there. I have some questions actually for both Nathan and Lior. Nathan, as far as your more traditional investments, can you paint a picture around sweet spot, size of the fund? What's our sweet spot ticket size? What do you do? Are you looking for pre-revenue, medtech? What's the story with the fund?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we hit a few different industries sectors. Manufacturing is larger, and there we're looking often at something where because we already own a decent amount in manufacturing, we can leverage, our existing structure to be able to diligence the inventory, for instance, that you'll buy. Maybe we'll have some sort of supply deal where we take a second position on that and take some equity. So that's the model that we've used a lot there, and then we spread it out from there. So it's often where we can diligence based on our existing core expertise and getting comfortable. Ticket size, usually, if it's something that it really depends on comfort and knowledge more than dollar size. The highest check.
I always think about I always like to use ourselves as an example. We're raising a Series B. It's a $10 million round. We opened a COVID bridge to it just to basically keep the momentum going, because finding leads in a Series B in this environment, we got some followers but no leads. So we're trying to stretch the runway. Would that kind of thing fit in the wheelhouse? Or
sure. In that case, if we got comfortable, we'd probably look for like somewhere between mid 6 figures to low 7 figures.
Okay, as part of a bridge, let's say.
Yeah.
Like, would you do a convertible discount, safe, something like that?
Yeah, we've done convertible risk, convertible debt.
Okay, because that's part of our little bridges. We're doing trying to do $1.5 million to get some COVID things done, to get into FDA and out, and we've got some of it spoken for, but we're trying to fill up the rest of that. So it'd be great to touch base after. So if you can shoot me an email, we can maybe set something up. And I guess same question for Lior about your accelerator, incubator. What can you tell us about that from the perspective of guys who are, kind of making their way to market and trying to do a Series B or a bridge?
So we focus more on ideation, generation, and evaluation. So it's pre-seed mainly. So you might be a bit more mature for.
I hope so. We're a lot more mature than that.
Yeah. So first of all, good job so far. I listened to the presentation. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
What we do, we usually take ideas either coming from AXA, the parent company, or from entrepreneurs who have the idea and want our support in evaluating the market, looking at the competition, thinking together on market strategy and business models. And once passing all these theoretical research work and analytics work, usually takes around 6 months, then we establish a company and we put the proceed investment.
Nathan, sorry, Nathan, I just saw your email has something to do with steel processing. You're not related to Danny, are you?
You know Danny?
Play hockey with Danny. I know Danny.
Oh, wow. Well, Danny's my cousin.
I was going to say, now that I look at you, you look a little like Danny. And how many people are in the Arkansas steel business?
Danny is a musician, but also has. Did you know him in Israel? Did you live near him?
I played hockey with Danny for 11 years. I started coming to Israel to play hockey about 12, 13 years ago. And we used to, I used to come every year like he, you know, we both used to come for the tournament every year. And he used to come also during the year to jump in a couple of pickup games. And then I made Aliyah a couple of years ago, but yeah, I saw Danny, where did I see him last? I think he came with us to Greece to play a tournament last year.
He would go anywhere to play hockey and play music.
He's a wild man. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's about as fun a guy.
Plays the saxophone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We have another person in the group.
He's the Jewish Kenny G.
Clarinet.
I see another person join the group, Yael. Would it be possible that Yael would introduce her and say what she does and from what company? Yael? Hello? No, Yael, I think that Yael is not talking. So, any more questions?
I'm good. If anybody wants to connect afterwards, please just reach out by email, or LinkedIn is also good. Happy to connect. Maybe, Joe, are we supposed to jump around to the different rooms and meet different people? So how do we do that? How do we go over sideways?
There's a room called breakout rooms, and you know what? Send an email to Debbie Shalev. At the bottom of your screen.
Here we go. Leave room. I think that's it.
Yeah, you have leave room and join. So
all right.
Okay.
Action.
Thanks,
So
guys.
you need to leave here.
Great to meet you, Cliff.
And then
Nathan, I'll be.
And then Debbie Shalev can.
Okay, and then Debbie can throw me in another room. All right, super. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Lior, where are you based, by the way?
In Tel Aviv.
In Tel Aviv. I see.
Is it okay, or it has to be Jerusalem in order to participate?
No, it's okay. We consider Tel Aviv as a
suburb of
Jerusalem.
Where is your workspace?
It's called the Mixer, and it's in the Expo Center in northern Tel Aviv. Ganei Tarucha.
Ganei Tarucha. So it's easy to get to.
Yeah. But we worked from home for the last 3 months, so I almost forgot.
When the train starts working again, we'll have a direct train from Jerusalem all the way to Ganei Tarucha, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it will be
Don't you need to
electrical
change
the way, right?
at Savion?
No,
Sorry?
they use the time of the corona to extend the line all the way to Ganit Arucha.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Exciting. Okay. So if you see the breakout rooms, I see that there's only actually 2 more breakout rooms that are active. All the other ones have stopped. Oh, no, 3, 4, and so. Okay.
I need to drop, so nice meeting you all. Send
Nice
you
meeting
some
you.
LinkedIn requests, and see you in the next event.
Okay, bye. I hope you enjoyed.
Bye. Yes, I did.
Are you part of the Jerusalem BioCity LinkedIn group? You're
Yes,
part of it. Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Great. Next to the next event. And bye. Bye. I'll be leaving and joining another group. Bye.
Oh, here, join.
There you go. Joe, you shouldn't be here. Why are you not in your room? Joe, you're muted. Go to your room. You're still muted. Hi, Avram.
There is no more room. Yes, we've left our room. There is no more room.
Well, there actually is there are 2 people there. They weren't active, I take it?
No, they didn't.
One of them doesn't have a camera or a microphone, and the other one never answered any questions.
Okay.
I'm going to join.
I think we'll just hyper-focus.
So Yoni, if we're looking to market the concept of the accelerator that I mentioned earlier, we're looking to reach out to potential partner companies for that accelerator. Is that something that I could turn to you for to assist us with?
It is, because a lot of times, one of the biggest challenges a lot of younger VCs and accelerators have is really just building thought leadership around the work they're doing. Again, there's a lot of capital. It's very crowded, right? Tech space is very noisy, right? And just about showing that your program is like the relevant program, and just do that through content. I personally focus on written content. I do video, but I think a lot of times now, it's like being decentralized. Like I focus on one aspect of marketing. A lot of times I'll bring in a team, say video or some other SEO, to do other parts of the business. But in a short answer, yes, happy to speak with you offline.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Joe. It's good to see you. So you came into the room.
Joe.
Okay. I hope you had a fruitful discussion. Things like that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I can probably wrap it up.
Yoni, just give me your email address. Is that posted?
I'm going to put it right here, so you guys. I'll give you my personal email address. It's right here. We will be sending a follow-up email as well. Yep.
Okay. Okay, Franco, why don't you know?
My LinkedIn
How many
is.
breakout groups are there?
There are 6 breakout groups.
Yeah.
And guys, if you want to, be happy I send a weekly newsletter on all things Israeli tech through LinkedIn. So I will send you the link if you are interested in subscribing.
Sure.
That's interesting.
I also have job news, funding opportunities. I interview a lot of just thought leaders in the space, and just try to help the startup nation.
And if any of you know any companies or advisors that could be interested in affiliating with the CCC, let me know.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
And special thanks to Joe V. Z.
Okay, have a good day and bye.
Bye. Bye.
תודה רבה.
Take care now.
David? Joe,
Yeah.
how are you doing?
Hi, okay. How's it going in your group?
Very nice.
Yes.
Very good. So everybody presents himself, and we have a small talk. Just
I understand that Sigal Gino is from Florida.
I'm from Brooklyn.
Ah, from Brooklyn.
Hi. Where did you get Florida from?
From
The
your
flower in the background?
From your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, no. I'm in New York.
I see. Oh, okay. So everyone on the group, apart from Avi Fate and Vitali, is from New York? And Stefan Marx is also from Jerusalem. Is my
yes,
neighbor.
of course.
New York.
Yeah, that's great.
Great. So here I raised the question, just what are the topics that could be interesting in the Fleur events, and maybe we really have had some ideas for the Fleur events, in medical device and transplantation, that we have never touched this this topic, and so on. It could be interesting for next events. What do you think? Joe?
He disappeared.
I'm very interested in doing something with New York, Dafka and eHealth. And one of the people who approached us was Stan Kowalski from Columbia Business School. And of course, the Chamber of Commerce are involved also in eHealth. So that's something maybe for the fall.
Okay, great.
How do we get in contact with the participants?
If you go into the meetup site, all the participants on the Israeli side are there. There's about 100 people, things like that, right? The thing is, the people in New York had problems registering on the meetup site, so they created the registration, which is on Eventbrite. Eventbrite. The thing is, if you want to contact somebody specific, you can send me an email and I'll send you his details.
Fine, like great, thank you.
Okay?
Yep.
So, Sigal, what do you do exactly?
So I'm in technology. I went to the Technion in Israel, but then I came here about 30 years ago. And I worked for different companies. I was at American Express, Morgan Stanley, but I also was at Mount Sinai. I was there for 3 years in the the medical school research department, helping basically enhance the workflow management for getting grants from the government for all the clinical trials. So I'm familiar with that. And I also worked for Pfizer for a while, consulted there for selling new drugs and stuff. So I'm familiar with that. And I just have general interest in medicine and also in helping Israeli companies succeed in the US, globally, and just kind of enriching that connection. Recently I was talking to the Bird Foundation. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Yeah. So, I'm always looking for opportunities to, work in technology, big data, And also I mentioned before, Dr. Shraga Rothstein, who's also a Technion graduate. He's coming up with 3 products, AI products. So I'm helping him look for investors. And so related to technology, but medical, energy field, Israel, Jerusalem, and all of that. I'm open to opportunities because I'm tired of banks. I'm tired of banks and big institution that has, you know, a lot of bureaucracy. So I'm kind of looking for the smaller space a little bit now because you can get a lot more done.
Sigal, as you know, actually, JLM BioCity is a hub for companies that you're interested in, because we are a hub of biotech companies in biopharma, in medical device, in digital health, and so on, so on, so on.
Oh, okay, great.
And we have about 1,000 members, but about 200 companies.
Oh, joining. This is the first time I hear, and my brother's in Jerusalem. He never told me about it.
So I invite you to join the JLM BioCity. You know, you will benefit from it for sure.
Yes, I will join.
As all of you, of course.
Yes, I got through this actually from LinkedIn. You know Yoni Frankel?
Yes.
Yeah, so I got that through him, but not through any of my Israeli connection, which is surprising.
So Jerusalem BioCity has a newsletter that we have on our LinkedIn group. I just sent on the chats to everybody the link. And basically it mirrors much more information on the different companies. It covers basically bio business news of companies in the Jerusalem area. There's almost 250 companies. So we have about 2-3 releases a week. And if you go on our site, which everything in LinkedIn is connected to, you'll see basically over the last 3 years, a steady flow of information. So more or less you see a lot of the companies. Most of the very small, early stage companies do not like to publish. So you'll miss them.
I'm having the same issue with this doctor that I'm working with now. He doesn't want anybody to know what he's doing. And I'm like, how are you going to get investors and people to, they have to sign an NDA.
Well, we have a lot of problems with, a lot of people prefer to talk about the technology and the science and not the product, which turns off a lot of investors, and it's a hard time. So it's a very big opportunity that Zoom offers is to allow entrepreneurs here to be in contact with the market or potential investors and things like that, and get a much better feel of what they're interested in.
Right, true. Definitely, I'm going to link to you, and whatever I can do to help.
That's great.
I also have some contacts at Mount Sinai and Memorial Sloan Kettering, people who worked in different industries. So
there's somebody in our group called Stephen Marks, but it's not Stephen Marks that I see here. That's not the Stephen Marks I know.
I think you're muted, Stephen or Stephen.
Yes, it's me, Joe.
Oh, it is you. Oh, yeah.
It is me, Joe. What are you talking about? You live down the street from me.
Yeah, bad resolution. Very, very bad resolution. I see. Okay.
I can't help that. Don't know how to adjust.
Yeah.
It means that COVID is too much time. We haven't met for a long time, We haven't met another.
Actually, I bumped into Stefan with his kids a week ago, right?
Yeah, it was a week ago in the grocery store, or in the Paran.
Okay.
That's great. And David, could you just remind what you do, David Abrams?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Looks like, yeah. So I work with Ernst & Young. I'm a tax attorney. Specializing in cross-border taxation. I help, at this point in my career, I'm focused more on multinational corporations, helping them, lower their overall tax tax liability, working with tax advisors from different countries. But I worked in Israel for also for Ernst & Young for around 6 years during the 2000s. It was from 2001 to 2007. I worked with a lot of high-tech companies, helping them with their cross-border taxation. So, but I've contacts, a lot of contacts because I work with Ernst & Young. Like I've been there for like 23 years, whether it's accounting or taxation or, various related fields. So like really not, I'm not a science guy. I'm not a technology guy per se, but I've worked with technology companies from the tax perspective, business tax perspective.
I see.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well.